身の術。 Let's go!
But that's alright.
Oh my god!
Yo guys, what is up? Max here on Borderlands 3 video, and today we are talking about Shadow Clone Zane, my Zane clone build. Now, this build isn't changing too much, but there is some new items that we can use to improve our damage, and we're going to be spending those new 5 skill points. Before we get into it, if you guys do enjoy the video, be sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And with that, let's get right into it. Alright guys, so showing on the screen right now is the updated skill tree for Shadow Clone Zane. Now, in terms of this build and how it's changing, it really isn't changing too much. These last points are very straightforward. They're going 4 into Brain Freeze and 1 into Confident Competence. The actual build and the skill trees and all that thing isn't changing at all. Before, we only had 1 point into Brain Freeze. Picking up more points into Brain Freeze will allow us to freeze enemies without using Cryo, or freeze enemies more consistently, which is important because we'll be talking about that in a second. And our big pickup here is Confident Competence, the green tree mid capstone. While Zane shields are active, he gains increased gun damage and accuracy. Now, you do not need to have barrier. You do not need to use barrier to get Confident Competence, but it does help because your shields are going to be more up. But you don't need to use barrier with this build. If you want to, you can. I prefer to go Sentinel and Digiclone, but the way this build is set up is if you want to run barrier, you have the best barrier augment, you have all-rounder, you have charge relay, and you have Confident Competence, which is really all you need in the green tree. This Confident Competence and all-rounder is really all you need to pick up. So while I still prefer to run Sentinel and Digiclone, the option is there, and this build is very versatile because of that. If you want to put down the barrier for a clone kill, you could do that. If you want to run with Sentinel Crowd, you could do that, and you're always going to have a Digiclone that hits really hard to accompany you. Now, we're putting points into Violent Speed, Violent Momentum, Salvation, Drone Delivery, Death Falls Close, Cool Hand. For augments, I use Bad Dose and Static Field. Static Field is nice, draining their shields and replenishing Zane's. This is going to synergize with Confident Competence, and overall works pretty well. Not too much to go over in the blue tree, pretty standard blue tree, and red tree. Now, the more points into Donnybrook you can get, the more your Digiclone damage, or the more damage your Digiclone will do, so that's very nice. Now, I do not put points into Fractal Frags. Don't recommend it. Your clone does more damage than you will do. Period. Your clone hits like a truck. And grenades don't do very much damage in Borderlands 3. Your clone throwing grenades is going to overall lower its DPS because it's going to have to stop shooting for a while to throw that grenade, bring the gun back up, and start shooting again. It overall just leads to a decrease in DPS output. To compensate for that, we're putting some points into Duct Tape Mod so that you can get those grenade procs, and we also have Drone Delivery for our grenades, which we're going to be using the On Grenade Throw 25 anoint. Now, Old You, very nice just to have. You don't really die too much, but in case you do, you've got Old You. Pocket full of grenades, you only need 1 point here. We're picking a point into Pocket full of grenades because of Boom Enhance. Whenever Zane summons his Digiclone, it consumes up to 3 grenades. Now, because we're using Seeing Dead, your clone's going to be up like a lot of the time, so you're not going to be spamming clone, you're not going to run out of grenades, but it is just nice to have some grenade regeneration with Pocket full of grenades. And lastly, double barrel, gun damage, and the clone is going to get your gun. This is the best Zane thing that you could get for your clone. It's going to give your clone a copy of your weapon. For clone augments, I usually use Doppelbanger, and I'll either use Schadenfreude. I always mispronounce this one. Everyone always comments on it, but this one's pretty much my favorite. These two is the ones I'll run. You can run which one's real, but I do prefer these two. Now, for the gear and weapons isn't changing too much. My favorite weapons to use and give to clone are the Anarchy, the Sandhawk, the Light Show, and the Hellwalker, with the Sandhawk being my absolute favorite. Now, the annoying on your Sandhawk, the annoying on the guns that you're going to give to clone don't really matter. I farmed a bunch of Sandhawks. All of them are like pretty meh anoints, but it doesn't matter because the clone isn't going to get the anoint that the Sandhawk gets. The only two anoints that the clone is going to be able to get is your splash damage anoint and the 500 crit anoint. We'll talk about the splash damage anoint in a second when we talk about bossing, but I will give the clone a Sandhawk that is burst fire. Now, you using a full auto Sandhawk is fine. However, the clone shoots the Sandhawk in burst regardless if it's full auto or burst, and the burst projectiles are just going to hit harder than their full auto counterparts. So a burst Sandhawk with any anointment is fine. I don't use the Sandhawk. I personally don't shoot the Sandhawk. I just give it to the clone, so the anoint on it doesn't really matter. What I like to run around with is pretty much mostly the Light Show. The Light Show with Sentinel Cryo is just amazing. It'll shred through everything. You can use a redistributor, but I don't really recommend it. Things like the Reflux, things like the Star Helix, the Chaos, the Gargoyle. There's a lot of cool weapons that you can use, and it really doesn't matter too much what you're using. As long as you give the clone a good weapon, you're going to be all set. But I like giving the clone the Sandhawk, the Light Show, the Hellwalker. The clone is an absolute beast with the Hellwalker. It doesn't have great range because it's a shotgun, but if you teleport and bring the clone into a group of enemies, they will all just instantly die with the Hellwalker. So these are my favorite weapons. And then for rocket launchers, if you want to get real spicy with it, give the clone a Backburner or a Plague Bearer, and the clone will do crazy damage. Now, speaking of clone crazy damage, the biggest thing that is changed here is our bossing setup. Now, in the bossing kills that you saw, I was using a slightly different loadout than what I typically use, and that was because I was using a improved version O.M with the on-action skill start, activate any effects that trigger on Shield Breaker Fill. This is the big change to this build. This is what we weren't using before, and this is something that is very, very cool. Now, this anointment on the version O.M, when you trigger your action skill or you fake your action skill, regardless, right there, this little trick I do, I will pull out clone, and then I'll open up my menu and stop it. So go for the clone animation, hit my pause screen. All that does is it procs my action skill and anointments, but it also drops this circle. Now, this circle is going to increase your damage by 50%, but it also increases your action skill damage by 50%. Credit to a guy named Thick Fillet, you probably know him, for finding this out. And this is the big change for us because your clone isn't going to get your 50 ASE Incendiary. Clone won't benefit from this. What the clone will benefit from, however, is if you put the clone down and you put it in one of these circles. Now the clone is going to be getting 50% damage and 50% action skill damage, and this allows clone to hit even harder than it already was, and is kind of the big takeaway or the new change for this build. We did put those new skill points in, but the guns aren't changing that much, gear's not changing that much. The big thing is this Nova version O.M. Now, you can use this for mobbing. I still like to stick to the old god just because I'm typically using Sentinel Cryo, and overall I'm just going to have a little bit more consistent DPS with an old god and a little bit better survivability. But the Nova, or the improved version O.M is going to drastically change up our bossing and allow us to do way more damage. If you guys want to use it for mobbing, you totally can. Lastly, for modifiers, I typically use Speed Demon and Postmortem for the most part. Just the Postmortem doesn't really bother me, and Speed Demon for more damage is amazing. Guys, that's really it for the build in the video. I think this was a little shorter one, so good stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Once again, drop the save file in the Discord if you're not already in there. We are almost at 60,000 members, which is freaking crazy. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Take care. Peace.
I was putting